Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Careers and Coffee of the autumn term. I hope you all had a really lovely summer. So this is the first of our series of Women in the Energy Sector talks. So there'll be these talks over the next 6 weeks from lots of different perspectives, lots of different job roles. So hopefully you'll find that interesting. So you don't have to listen to me for too much longer. Please, can I introduce Esmee Thornton? So Esmee is the Deputy Site Manager for Siemens Garmsay. Esmee, I think there she is. Hi.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm sat in a very warm room because the sun is absolutely glorious today, which makes a change.
Feels like we've got a little bit of summer at last, doesn't it?
Yes, apparently until tomorrow evening, and then it'll just rain. Fab. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us and being our first speaker in this little series that we're doing. Can I get you to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and we can go from there?
Yeah, of course. So as you said, I'm Esmee. I'm currently the Deputy Site Manager for Siemens Gamesa at the East Anglia 1 offshore wind farm. So we're based just off the coast of Lowestoft, and I'm part of the team that help kind of deliver the service contract and repair the turbines when they go wrong. So similar to how your car needs an annual MOT and a regular service, we do that for the turbines, make sure they keep spinning and keep generating electricity.
Fantastic.
But for me, my background, I'm not actually from Norfolk. I grew up in Kent. I came up here for university. I went to school and I did my A-levels. I did maths, geography, physics and graphic design, and kind of didn't really know what to do with myself. So I went to university and I did a degree in environmental geophysics. I spent a little bit of time through that because I did a year in industry placement working doing offshore surveying for oil and gas and also offshore wind.
Oh, fantastic. How did you get that placement?
I think a little bit of sheer luck, but a lot of persistence. I was quite lucky. My university had really strong links with industry. So they managed to put me in touch with some people, and it was just a lot of keeping knocking on people's doors until someone gave me something.
A bit of persistence and some resilience, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. That helped a lot. But yeah, that I can remember my first job where I worked on a wind farm, and we were working around the base of a wind turbine, and I looked up and I just thought, that's so cool. I really want to be part of that. So I went back to university after that and did a master's in energy engineering. And after taking a little bit of a break and spending some time traveling around New Zealand, I came back to the real world. And I actually got a job with EGA, who I think are helping with this series of talks.
They are.
And I spent some time planning their events and their conferences and really getting to learn a lot about the local industry, and doing some engagement with schools as well, and getting to know the businesses, and saw this job advertised and kind of took a punt really, and here I am 11 months later.
Fantastic. So you've been there less than a year?
Yes, yeah.
Has it been an interesting year given everything that's happened?
Chaotic. Really chaotic.
Good word.
We're quite a new wind farm, so that in itself is quite a big challenge for the team. But then with COVID added on top and having long periods of time where the teams going out to the turbines every day were still working, their jobs didn't change apart from the fact that they had to keep further apart from each other.
Which is slightly different to do on a boat, I should imagine.
Well, a boat and a turbine, yeah.
Well,
so
yes, yeah.
Lots of challenges, and a lot of the time, I'm part of that support network for them. I'm part of the support for the team and the management for the team, and I couldn't be there every day. Sometimes I was trying to do it from home, so it was definitely challenging for myself and for my team. But we've definitely come out of it quite strong and resilient again.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think everyone's learned skills perhaps they didn't know that they had or needed. We've had a question from one of our viewers asking about your gap year. So you said very casually, I just travelled around New Zealand for a year. So why did you decide to do that after your year in industry, and what do you think it gave you? Was it good to have a break before an industry placement and going straight into work, or was it that you needed a break, or did you just want a different challenge?
I've actually had two. So I don't know how I've managed to wangle that. So I took one before I went to university, and that was partly because I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet. I'd always wanted to travel a little bit, and I wanted to have a bit of money behind me as well before I went to university. So I spent most of the year working to get a bit of a backup, and then also spent a couple of months traveling. And I think that year really gave me a bit of focus, because it gave me that time to, because I feel like when you're doing your A levels, there's a lot of like pressure of, oh, what I choose at university is what I have to do for the rest of my life. And that's how I felt at that point in time. It's not the case. I'll say that now. It's definitely not the case.
Let's repeat that really loud and clear.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
But I think that's how I felt. So that's why I took that year. And it really gave me that focus for when I got to university. And I took it a lot more seriously than I think I would have done if I'd gone a year earlier. But then I took a year again after finishing my master's degree before I went into work. And partly that was because I was quite tired. You know, I'd just done 5 years of education, and I think it all got a bit much, but also it was the perfect time in my life to do it. I didn't have a house, I didn't have a job, you know, we could drop everything really and take that once in a lifetime trip, and it not, I did have worries that it was going to impact my career prospects when I got home, but it hasn't in the slightest. And actually I learned a lot from that time, and I've you know, got a lot out of it, and I've become, you know, a stronger person in lots of different aspects that in it, if anything, it's only helped me in the long run. So yeah, it really gave me, both of them really gave me a bit of focus and a bit of determination. And instead of kind of going into something half-heartedly, both times I've gone into education and work really enthusiastic and really ready to go.
Yeah, no, I think it sometimes gives you a bit of headspace, which is not anything that you can take for granted. I think sometimes we all need to step out, don't we, a little bit?
Yeah, and once you get into a job, you know, I'm quite ambitious and I want to have a good career, and I didn't almost want to have that break a few years in. I thought, oh, I'll start early. I'll have that break now, get it in, and then I'll really get my knuckle down and get my head in the game, which is worked for me. And I think everyone's different, aren't they? So different things work differently for different people.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I suppose, the obvious choices for A levels in terms of your maths and things like that, but you also mentioned graphic design. So one of our viewers has asked, how did you narrow down your decision on which uni you chose and which course you took? So obviously you have a few different directions you could have gone in there. So what was your process there?
I always loved maths. I always have done ever since I was little. So maths was just an obvious choice for me, and geography I found really interesting. And again, physics, I really like knowing how things work. So physics is it. That's what it is. It's kind of the mechanics to how the earth works. And but I've always been quite creative as well. And I got 4 choices. And like I said, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I wanted to make sure I had things in there that I loved, as well as stuff that I thought would help with a future career. So
do you think that's important, having a balance?
Definitely. Oh, definitely, because otherwise you just get demotivated. If you go into school or college and you 4 subjects you're doing just because you feel like you have to, you're not going to want to be there. Whereas having that lesson or 2 every day of graphics, I was like, I'm really excited for that. To be fair, I was like that about maths as well, which people are going to think I'm really sad for. But
everyone has their passion. Go for it.
Yeah, and actually, you know, if engineering is something you're considering, a big part of it is design and having that thought about how things look and how things are going to work, and art and design are just as much part of that as the physics and the maths are. You've got to be able to visualize things, so it definitely it indirectly has helped. But I did it because it was something I loved.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I do think sometimes we can get focused on doing something because we think they pair nicely, or we should do, or we get focused on a job title rather than a sector. And you talk about your role there, and you were talking about the wind farm and being at sea, and all of the bits and bobs that you did before then. But then you're talking about the design side. So in your role, what does a typical day look like?
I'm quite lucky in the sense that actually no day is the same for me, and I really love that. You know, my core role is supporting the team on the day-to-day basis, so helping make sure that we can get technicians to site, get them offshore, get them fixing turbines, but also helping people with their kind of personal needs as well. So I'm a line manager for a number of the team, so that's quite a big part of it, making sure they're okay, making sure they're also progressing and developing in the way that they want to, and just checking in, seeing how they're doing, but then making sure we deliver the contract that we've got with our customer every day. I've got to make sure we're sending out the right amount of teams with the right focus and that the customer are happy. And if we have any concerns with health and safety, I've got to help the team address those and try and figure out what's potentially gone wrong, what can we improve on. So it really changes every day. Today I started quite early. I had a 6 o'clock start because we had a session this morning where we spoke to all of the technicians, gave them a bit of an update of what's going on at the moment, what changes we've had before they then set sail, because they work a 12-hour day.
Wow.
And then the rest of the day I've been looking at kind of some longer term planning. So what's our next year's campaign going to look like? How many people are we going to need? Things like that. But also a little bit of just kind of getting to know, working with the team, seeing what their challenges are today, what can we do to overcome them, what challenges are going to come up tomorrow and next week, and the more kind of immediate problems that we need to solve. So it really, really varies. Some days I'm planning safety events where we have a whole day where we focus on safety, and other days I'm probably just talking to people all day long because they've all got something that they want to discuss with me, or got a bit of a concern, or even they're just really happy and they want to talk about their development and how they can move forward. So it really, really changes, and I'm really lucky in that sense.
And is there any part of that role or that day that you prefer, or actually does it all feed into each other and just be a nice kind of round role?
I think I like pretty much every aspect of it, but I think for me, I've always really liked working with people. So for me, I've really wanted to get into the industry. I really wanted to work in offshore wind. I have a technical background, but I didn't want to just do a technical job. And this was a way for me to get a little bit involved in the technical side of things, but also still have my role mostly working with people, mostly dealing with people and talking to people and helping people. And so obviously that brings its own challenges, especially as you're a line manager. There's lots of challenges with that, and it on the 99.9% of the time it's brilliant and it's really fun, but there's always a 0.01% of the time where you've got to have a difficult conversation or have a slightly challenging day. And I think on a whole my job is so good that those things just kind of get swept under the carpet in my eyes, because I'm like, okay, I've had a bit of a challenging second, but on the grand scheme of things, I love my job, so it doesn't really matter.
That's really great. So going back to your technical background, we've had a question about your course and whether it was quite male heavy, and I suppose that goes for your industry and your job, and you talked about line managing. So is it quite male heavy, would you describe?
So my undergraduate degree, so when I did environmental geophysics, it was actually part of the environmental sciences department. I went to the University of East Anglia, so locally, and it was actually a 50-50 split. It was really nice. It was really balanced. And then for my master's degree for energy engineering, it was actually female heavy, which
that's interesting. Yeah,
there were only 12 of us, but there were more women on that course than there were men, which surprised me as well, actually, when I went onto it, because I wasn't expecting that.
What do you think it was? Do you think it was them trying to buck the trend, or do you think that there is just more, perhaps more women in engineering than we think, and they're just not talked about?
I think there's been a big push to get more women involved in the industry and in engineering, and I think that probably helped because it was around that time where it really started to kick off. But I also think there are a lot more women in the industry, but maybe they're not always in the most obvious of roles. So it feels like they're maybe slightly more hidden, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're maybe not the people that are plastered on the posters and on all of these pictures. So but for my job, that when I worked offshore with in my previous role surveying, it was definitely male dominated, and being in that environment where you're on a vessel at sea for the longest I was away, I think was an 8 to 10 week stint, and I was quite lucky because there were a few other women on that vessel, but I also did a shorter job later on where there were just the two of us, and one of us on the day shift and the other was on the night shift, so it was quite strange, but I don't think I minded it really as much as I thought I would. I think it's a little bit daunting at first, but everyone was just so friendly.
Yeah.
And no one, and I was really lucky. No, in those environments, I never really felt like it was, there were maybe only a couple of times where I felt like I was singled out because I was a woman, but it wasn't every day. And it was, no more than in a normal day-to-day life, if that makes sense.
So talking about that, so a question that's come up, it said, as a woman in engineering, do you feel that you've had to overcome any stereotypes because it is such a male-dominated industry? And would you have a piece of advice for other women wanting to go into engineering?
I think, to be honest, everyone's been very welcoming, and I wouldn't really say that they've held much, or like I've had to overcome too much. I do line manage people, and they're all male, and a chunk of them are older than me as well, and I think that was almost the most daunting aspect about my job, and sometimes can be one of the more challenging elements, and I do think sometimes people will not use the fact that I'm a woman against me, but try and play on the fact that I'm a woman, and maybe they're a man, and maybe they can say things, but I think you learn how to handle that, and there's so much support around me to help me deal with those situations that I never feel like I'm in a point where I just I can't take it or it's too much, and actually you just turn around and go, that's not appropriate, and most people will back down because they know it's not, and they try to push their luck. So you just have to stand up for yourself, and as a woman looking to get into engineering, the biggest thing I'd say is just go for it. Like, honestly, just go for it. Just reach out. There's more women than you think around. Reach out to them for a bit of mentorship and a bit of guidance, and they're more than willing to support you. But also, once you get into that role, even my office today, there's not a single other woman here today. I don't notice it anymore. I'm just part of the team, and if you've got a good team, it doesn't matter, and everyone will welcome you and bring you in as part of it. So if
that's
this is
a great perspective.
Follow your. Don't let something like that stop you from doing something that you want to do.
That's great. That's a really lovely way to sum that issue up, because I do wonder whether that is something that stops our students potentially looking at a role, both genders. It might be the perception that they have. So hearing that is really, really reassuring. So we've touched on different skills. We've mentioned resilience a lot. We've mentioned teamwork. We've mentioned getting up early, which I do think is a skill. What would you say are the key skills that you would think students would need if they wanted a career in engineering? Give me your top 3. I'm just looking at,
I think the ability to adapt to change.
Okay.
Because engineering is a rapidly advancing and developing industry that you will go into one job and it will look like that on the first day, but it'll be something completely different, with the advancements of technology. So you've got to adapt to that change and kind of go along with the ride a little bit and take it on board. So that's really important. I think, for us and at our site, you've got to be good at problem solving. You've got to kind of have a bit of a thing about you where you like look at something and you go, you can't go, it's too difficult, I'm going to leave that alone. You've got to look at it and go, that's interesting. Right, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to overcome this? Because that's what engineering is. It's developing solutions to problems and ways around things. And then I'd say people skills are a much bigger part of it than I think people think, because you are normally working as part of a team. And I think as well, like a lot of people think to get into an industry that is engineering based, you have to be good at all of the STEM subjects all the time. But there's so many different niche roles that I think if you've got a good set of core soft skills, you can learn the rest.
Yeah.
And people, if they think you're worth investing in, they'll take a chance on you. So it's not just all about whether you've got straight A's. Those softer skills are just as important.
Fantastic. And so one last question, because if you can believe it, 20 minutes has flown by. So how do you feel within engineering the sector or the energy sector can help with climate control and helping the environment? Obviously, it's a huge topic at the moment. It's something our students are really passionate about. So you work offshore energy, offshore wind. Yeah. So what do we think the future holds for that and in combating what we're trying to combat?
Everything is just getting bigger and better and more advanced. We are an offshore wind farm, so we generate renewable electricity, and we have wind turbines that create 7 megawatts, or they are 7 megawatt turbines, but they're currently developing 15 megawatt turbines, which is just outstanding how much it's advanced. And I think the engineering industry is keeping making those advancements and those changes, but they're also looking at really maximizing every opportunity. So can we use offshore wind to also help us generate hydrogen, which is much cleaner than gas? So it's an alternative again. So it's just that constant change and advancement. There's so many options to be involved in to help with climate control, and whether that's generating renewable electricity or doing carbon capture and storage, or even just improving the technologies that we have, like making cars more efficient and pollute less. There's all sorts of different options to go into, and there's lots that it's doing to help with climate change.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's been really interesting. I think that it's given a really great insight into your role, not just as a woman, but your role in the energy sector, how students might get into it, but the different skills they need. And I think the focus on those soft skills, the communication, the teamwork, being able to talk and deal with people are key in most industries. And it's really great to see that that is still the case. And there's lots of different ways to work in the energy sector. You've been great. Thank you so much for spending the time to talk to us.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
And go and enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. So thank you for everyone who joined us today. And for the great questions. I think we've got a really great insight into what Esmee and Siemens are trying to do, but also the whole energy sector and how you get into it and the type of skills that you might need to make your career in that sector a success. So the next Careers and Coffee is at 4:30 next Tuesday, and it will be another engineering talk, and we hope you have a great afternoon, and we will see you soon. Bye.